She has a broken toe, so we're going to let her sit. Yeah. My name is Susan Gess. I am a retired pharmacist from Kaiser. I'm still a pharmacist, I'm just retired. And when I was at Kaiser, I wore many hats. But when the law for End of Life Act in California went into effect in 2016, it was all voluntary involvement. So when they said, hey, we are going to need pharmacists who will go out and consult patients about what this is all about, my hand went up immediately. It seemed like the perfect fit for my passions and my interests. So I've been consulting hundreds of patients over those years, and then I learned about End of Life Choices California, a volunteer not for profit that provided at the bedside help for people, and I said this is perfect. So I was doing both for a while. Karen will tell a little bit more about herself as we get into things, but we would like to start the presentation. So I am with End of Life Choices California. We are a nonprofit. I've said that before. Everything we do is free of charge, which I'm surprised when we get phone calls. People say, well, how much does this cost? And I'm like, I didn't even think to tell you we're free. Like everything we do, we are passionate about this. So our goal is to provide Californians the information they need to decide what are their options when they get ill or are at the end of their lives. But we also talk about things before then. So we have highly trained volunteers. We just finished another training program with our volunteers this last weekend. We have staff from all over that serve as volunteers, and we have phone and email questions that come into us nonstop, usually about 100 a month, if you believe that. And so we will work with people who bring their stories to us and have questions and answer those questions and guide them. We also make home visits. So that will be either to plan out your advanced care planning stuff, or if you're considering an end-of-life option, we will meet with you, and we will be there on the day that somebody chooses to die. So, and then we make presentations like I am today. So, what do we hope you take away? Well, we want you to know, obviously, that it's important to talk about this. You guys are here because you're willing to talk about it. A lot of people won't even come in the room. They're afraid. In fact, we were at the senior fair. We had a booth, and we would be watching people walk by, and they're like, no, I'm not ready for that yet. And we're like, no, now is the time to think about what you want, to talk about it with your loved ones, and come to a decision while you're healthy and you can think about it. We want you to know your legal end of life options in California, because we have a law that protects you. And we want you to know what end of life choices can provide for you, and what a death doula can provide for you, because that is a term that's, you know, now becoming more common, but a lot of people have no idea what that is. Karen, speaking of death doulas. No? Yeah. Yes. That was fast. I know. I talked fast.
Good morning. I was just making a note on something Sue said. I have a mailing list for an event that I do monthly that I'll talk to you about later. But I sent it out recently, and I had a person write back to me and say, can you please remove me from your mailing list? I'm not planning to die. Yes. Is that better? Okay, I'll stay close. So I thought, well, good luck with that, because we may not be planning for it, but we're all going to get there. So I am an end-of-life doula. Just a little bit about my background is I had about a dozen years where I was attending deaths of family members. And I noticed that I was that person in the family where people would say, oh, we need to get Karen here, because I was comfortable asking questions, talking with the doctors, talking with the caregivers, giving people permission to say the things they needed to say to the person who was dying. You can go and sit and hold their hand, like it's all okay. And so as my grandfather was dying, I just started feeling this call, like what my family does, what I am able to do for people, feels really unique, feels special. And I feel like I would love to be able to do this for other people. And when I found out that there were such a thing as end-of-life doulas, I was ecstatic. That's my role. that's my thing. And so I've stepped into it just in 2020. And so it's fairly new for me, but I just feel like I've finally figured out what I want to do when I grow up. So I'm going to be talking to you about some of the things I do as an end-of-life doula, about some comforting ideas for end-of-life, and about why we should all be having more conversations about death and our wishes for end-of-life. Talk to people. So broadly stated, an end-of-life doula, or death doula, is a non-medical guide for terminally ill or dying people and their loved ones. When someone has received a terminal diagnosis and they need someone to talk to, when they want to review their life and create a legacy project to leave for their loved ones, when they want to do end-of-life planning while they're still healthy, or they want someone there when they die, or they want a familiar person to help their loved ones with grief, a doula can be there at all of these times, as often as needed, providing continuity of care between visits with doctors, hospice, and others. Now, I don't have an organization behind me allowing me to provide my services for free, but I do work on a sliding scale. And so everyone who comes to me, we have a conversation. Here's my standard fee, what's comfortable for you? So I really want to have doula services to be accessible to anyone who needs it, because we all can benefit. Each case that a doula works on is unique, because the doula is constantly assessing and addressing the needs of the individuals at hand. And each doula is unique because we have different types of training and different life experiences have helped prepare us for our work. And we each offer a slightly different array of services depending on our particular skills. So I'll discuss a few of these today. I prefer to call myself an end-of-life doula rather than a death doula, because doulas offer support for dying and also for living. And death is only a moment. And until the moment that we take that last breath, we are alive. End-of-life doulas work hand in hand with the dying person and their loved ones. Doulas can help mediate tough conversations, provide respite care for the primary caregiver, be a gatekeeper for visits and questions, and help take care of practical needs. Doulas work hand in hand with caregivers, who are often part of some of the most meaningful conversations and have valuable insights into the needs of the dying person. When doulas get to know the caregivers, they can work together to provide deeper emotional and physical support. Doulas can work with the medical team and may attend visits in person or virtually, taking notes and helping the patient ask questions and clarify answers from the medical personnel. With the patient's permission, doulas can speak with the medical team as needed to help keep lines of communication open and to advocate for the patient's wishes and needs. And doulas work hand in hand, especially with the hospice team. Hospices across the U.S., including at least one in our area, are seeing the advantages of working with doulas, and they're starting to hire doulas as members of the core hospice team. Patients benefit when both doulas and hospice are involved in a case. The hospice chaplain can provide more spiritual support, and hospice nurses handle the medical needs that doulas are not licensed for. At the same time, doulas have fewer constraints than hospice personnel when it comes to many other needs a patient may want help with. I like to tell people that as long as it's legal and I am able to do it, I'll figure it out. We can figure it out together. If I can't do it, we'll find someone who can. Most of all, doulas are there, developing deep relationships with the dying person and their loved ones to fill the gaps in care between hospice visits.
Thanks, Karen. Okay, thank you, Karen. That was lovely. So what studies have shown, and I'm sure if we talked about this, is that we would all love to pass away in our homes, at peace, with our pain controlled and our spiritual needs met. So how do we go about doing that? Well, we have to actually plan for that, because otherwise we might be rushed to a hospital and hooked up to lots of IVs and all these interventions that perhaps we do or don't want. So you need to figure out your values and your loved ones' values and make them known so that they are honored. And believe it or not, lots of families have said, wow, this was really wonderful that you put down your wishes so that we didn't have to get confused, fight about what we thought your wishes were. It's really a gift of love to your family and friends. So, if you look at this form, this is the form that you download from the California website. And every state has a different advanced care directive, and people ask, are they transferable? They essentially are, because they're very vague statements. It either says, I want you to go all out to make me live, or please let me die. I mean, it's very vague. And so we highly encourage that you don't just check one box or the other, but that you actually add to this. And you can fill out as many extra pages as you want. But the question is, how do you do this? When I was at Kaiser, there was a big move to have us all do our advanced care directives. No matter what age the employee was, do your advanced care directive, because how are we supposed to encourage our members to all fill them out if we don't know what it's like? And so we went to a meeting, and I said to the nurse manager who was there, I said, Kim, where do I start? All it is a blank line. And she's like, well, would you like this? Would you like that? And I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I needed to know. So there are very helpful things out there to help guide your decisions. I brought some copies of this. It's called My Particular Wishes. It's simplified 10 things that are more detailed than what's on the current advanced directive form. Do you want artificial nutrition? Do you want antibiotics if you have a serious illness, or would you rather just have the illness, the infection maybe end your life? Some people don't want to, they're done. They don't want more intervention. Other people are like, do it all. And there's no right or wrong. It is what your wishes are. There's a middle column that says, do a trial period. Sorry, that was really loud. Do a trial period and let's see how that works. I'm willing to do that because I don't know yes or no. So this is all available on the End of Life Choices website. There's also a booklet. I don't know if somebody at the table wants to hold up one of the orangey booklets. This is available at Amazon.com, and it's a guide that guides you through more detailed questions, and it's only, I think, $5.99. So there are guides out there that help you apply this and make your advanced care directive more robust and more meaningful to you and your family. Now, most people have heard of this POLST form, and they're like, well, I need a DNR, and I need a POLST, and I need an advanced care directive, and I'm really confused. So you have, hopefully, gone through your wishes, made your advanced care directive. The POLST is the doctor writing those orders so that the emergency care person who comes to your house will honor those wishes. Okay, so they've got a section for I want CPR or I don't. I want medical treatment or I don't. I want artificial nutrition or I don't. The doctor signs this and either goes on your fridge or in your refrigerator in a little tube that the emergency medical team is supposed to look at. Now, most of the time, people are doing this, when they know they've got a serious illness, but it can be done at any time. But it is a physician's form. The advanced care directive is all you and getting somebody to sign as your witness and put it in your legal trust and all that. So one thing, and I will turn if Karen wants to do this slide, people ask, well, a lot of the options you're talking about have to be you're of clear mind and you know what you caught, you're aware of where you are and what you want. But we're seeing dementia on the rise as we all live longer. How do I plan for that?
So the Dementia Directive is an optional, non-legally binding addendum to the Advanced Directive. And as Sue said, it will become more relevant. I need to lift it up a little bit, maybe. It will become more relevant to many of us as we go. It's taken on new significance for me just this year when my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. She and my father have been very good about their end-of-life planning for years and years, but a document like this is not yet part of their advanced directive, and it's something I keep meaning to talk to them about, and I need to stop waiting for the right time. We all just need to do the things we need to do. So this addendum allows you to state your wishes in advance for the level of care you believe you would want at various stages of dementia, such as if you develop late-stage dementia, if you require 24-hour care and supervision, if you no longer recognize your loved ones, different markers of that sort. You can tell them whether in that situation you would want to live as long as possible with aggressive life-saving treatment, whether you would want to treat the illness in non-aggressive ways, or whether you would like to have comfort care only and for them to allow a natural death. Some of the other situations that you might want to consider as your markers would be if I'm unable to bathe and clean myself without assistance, if I am no longer have control of my bladder or bowels, if I'm no longer aware of my surroundings. So this is an addendum that would help your medical proxy and your loved ones make the best decisions for you when you get to the point where you really can't make them for yourself.
Okay. So we're encouraging everybody and their children and at all age. Oh, we have a question. Yes.
Where would one get a copy of that?
Aha. So the Dementia Directive is available at our website and also at Compassion and Choices, who is the owner of this, this document. So, and if you guys have heard of Compassion and Choices, we are an offshoot from them. They used to do the kind of things we do, which is helping individuals. They have moved in more of the legislative role to protect our law in California and to also get the law passed in other states. So, oh, sorry. So that's who Compassion and Choices is. I feel like I'm going like this. I'm a little short person. So now that we've talked about some of the, you've got, there's also a values worksheet on our website. Our website, End of Life Choices California, or EOLCCA, if you put those acronyms in, it'll bring you right to it. It has a values worksheet. It has your advanced care directive. It has the 10 questions. It has everything that you could possibly want. We encourage you now to fill out that advanced healthcare directive, including the dementia worksheet. Name your healthcare agent. And I want to point out to people, this does not have to be your family members. Think about what your values are and who will best honor those values. Sometimes it's better to go with a friend if they are more in line with your thinking. And that's not an insult. It's the most important, one of the most important decisions you make, and you want it to be with someone who values you. Your wishes. Share your copies with your support groups and with your doctor, and even consider bringing it with you on a trip. If you're going somewhere and you think, wow, something may happen on the trip, she has her wishes with her right there, or with him. And then update them regularly. We've talked about, like Karen was saying, her parents have done this planning, thank goodness. Some people say, I've done that. I've done that. Well, maybe they just checked that one simple box. I want full bore all medical treatment or not, but they haven't really updated it. Things have changed. Maybe they've lost a spouse. We should all be regularly checking it, especially at significant changes. So hopefully we've battered into you that, have a party, have an advanced care planning party, and everybody do it. Make it fun over a glass of wine or something. Because we really should all have that done. Okay, We're here also to talk about our end-of-life options. There are more than people know about, especially in California, so I'm going to be covering all of these. Continuing medical treatment may sound simple. Of course I'm going to continue medical treatment. My doctor recommended that I get treatment at this level, I'm going to do it. Important to have the discussion, what is the treatment going to look like? What is it going to give me as far as time, and what will my life look like? And what are the downsides of the treatment, so that you have a really educated view of what it's going to do. Once people hear about some of the side effects, they decide, that's not really the route I want to go. But it is a personal decision. It's quantity of time versus quality of time. And then you can also, this is legal to say, I don't want further treatment. I worked with a woman for about, we became good friends for about 9 months. She said, I have cancer, I want no treatment, and nobody understands that. I feel it, that's not for me. And she was going to use the end-of-life option, and she was just figuring out the right timing. So we worked together on that. But it doesn't have to be that you just don't take any treatment. You could actually stop what you're currently on if you decide that you're done. And I'm not encouraging people to stop their lives. There are people out there who say, I fall all the time, I get dizzy, I've broken bones, I this, I that. I'm 98, I've had a good life, I am just done. And so we talk about, well, you can stop some of this treatment. It is legal. So another option that people have is hospice care. And I know that's on the far side of the slide, so our brain sort of goes, wait, Sue, why aren't you talking about the left side? But hospice care, I gotta tell you, it's a passion of mine. My dad signed up for hospice care and then died that evening while we were still talking to the hospice nurse. It is not for the last 3 days that you live. You qualify when a doctor thinks that you may have 6 months or less to live. And the only reason that's the marker is that's when Medicare starts paying for it. So, hospice care is this great team of people, a social worker, a chaplaincy, doctors, nurses, and their goal is to give you the best day that you can have every day that you have left. So pursue that and get that best day while you're alive. And a lot of times, and studies have shown this, people live longer and they're happier in hospice. So I just want to stop that fear of, if I sign up for a hospice, I'm giving up. Palliative care is an even cooler option that I like to inform people of on the phone when they call. And that happens when you're still actively getting treatment. You can get it when you have diabetes. Any chronic condition can qualify you for palliative care. You get the same team care approach, experts who are trying to make your day the best day that it can be. The tricky part is that, Medicare doesn't pay for it. Other insurances do, and you can do it anytime you want. So I highly encourage people to consider that. And of course, one of the things we work with in End of Life Choices California is medical aid in dying. And it is a legal option in California. A lot of people think they have to move to Oregon. I've heard that, or I wish I had known this was an option earlier. How many cancer patients I worked with who said that, and I went back to their doctor and said, hey, here's some feedback for you, and they said, I didn't want to mention it. I was afraid they'd think I was giving up on them. And I said, oh, here's a way to talk about it. Hey, we can do investigational drugs. We can do standard therapy. We can look at hospice to support you. We can look at palliative care. And maybe sometime you might want to consider medical aid in dying as an option at the end. Boom, it's part of your choices. It doesn't have a big onus. You do need to be, here's the trick again, mentally able to prove that you know what you're doing. So that Dementia Advanced Care Directive comes in handy because there's no way for a dementia person to sign up for medical aid in dying and prove that they're mentally capable. So they don't qualify for medical aid in dying. And you have to have 2 doctors say that you're terminally ill, which is considered that 6 months or less to live. Now, a lot of people I know got approved for medical aid in dying and lived for 18 months to 2 years. So it's a guesswork, right? Yeah, question.
Repeat that part about dementia.
Yeah, I knew as soon as I said it that I was wrapping too much stuff in that. To qualify for medical aid in dying, you have to be clear of mind of what you're doing. Since you can't do that when you're in the late stages of dementia, then you either decide, so help me out here, Karen, no. So the thing that you have to support you is the Dementia Advanced Care Directive, because you won't qualify for medical aid in dying. If you're in early dementia and you've got other illnesses that the doctor says will end your life in 6 months, you can still prove that you're of clear mind. Hopefully that clarified, and I'm happy to clarify it more. So, oh, there's a question.
So I have a question about the 2 doctors who need to sign off on this. What if you have physicians who won't do that?
I will get to those. That's perfect. You're setting me up really well. Just let me point out that we're not the only state who has this. In fact, California was kind of late to the game if you think about Oregon and Washington leading the charge. So there's 10 states and Washington, D.C. who all have this. We got this way back in 2016. So here we are 8 years on in doing this, and like I said, a lot of people don't know about it. I bring up this slide because Governor Brown was the governor at the time who signed the bill. If you all don't know, he was Jesuit by training, so he had a Catholic background. And I think it's very poignant because a lot of people who are of the Catholic faith and maybe other religions disbelieve that you should time when you're going to die because God has a plan for you. But Governor Brown had a very poignant way of approaching that. He said, I don't know what I would do personally, but I certainly, and I'm paraphrasing, you can read it, wouldn't deny this right to others because there's a comfort to knowing that you can control a death that's on its way, you can control the timing. So here's what we were talking about with the question, what are the eligibility requirements? They are the same in most states. Some people I've heard say, oh, I'll go to Oregon, they have easier qualifications. That's not true. You have to be a California resident, which is actually pretty easy. We've advised people who are moving from other states who don't have it. You just sign a lease with someone or you get a California ID. Most doctors won't be sticklers about this either. You have to be adult, so we're not talking about anyone 18 or younger than 18. Terminally ill with 2 doctors who agree that you have 6 months or less to live, mentally capable, and able to self-ingest small amounts of liquid. And that's not just orally, and I can get into that if people want more details. If you do not have doctors who support this, and we will tell you, ask your primary care, ask your oncologist, ask your neurologist, ask your kidney doctor. Like, you've got probably a handful of doctors who you can go to. If they aren't involved, are ignorant, are in a system like Providence where they can't participate, we will help you find physicians who will help you. There are hospices where their hospice physicians will write for medical aid in dying. They've opened their minds to, okay, we aren't afraid of that. We're helping people have the best days, but we will also help them die. Other hospices are like, that's a little bit too touchy for us. So we will guide you to a hospice or a physician who will do that. Kaiser and Sutter, the UC systems are very supportive of this. In fact, Kaiser, my alma mater, has coordinators who will walk you through every step of this process. So it is a law. So we want people to know it's just not being abused out there. That's why people were worried about passing the laws. They thought, oh, disabled people will be pushed to do this. Mothers and fathers who have money that the kids want will be pushed into this. We have 10 states and Washington, D.C., 11 places with 100 years of experience, no one has ever been pushed to do this or coerced to do this who didn't want to. We know it's voluntary. You make multiple oral requests, you make a written request. Here's the oral requests. They have to be at least 2 days apart. That's to give you some protection of rushing into this. You also have to have the written request. You also have to fit in 2 doctor's appointments. So this is not something you do in a day or 2. You have to think about this in advance. And you can qualify and not use the medication. So once you go through meeting with 2 doctors who agree, and you've put your paperwork in, all your verbal requests are there, the doctor will write a prescription for a medication that will hasten your death on your timing. So what is lovely about this is that these people are passing away anyway. Some of them are actively, like, almost going into a coma when they take this, but they really want to do it on their own. Other people look a little bit healthy. In fact, my mom watched a video with me that I was in, and it showed a death of someone. She goes, he looked too healthy. He wasn't suffering enough. And I go, Mom, the law does not say that you have to be outwardly suffering so everyone can see it. It just means that you can choose the time of your death. So the prescription is written. You don't have to pay for it and pick it up and have it in your house. Some people find huge comfort in that, but you can leave that prescription on file and just decide, I feel better knowing it's there and I haven't put the money out and it's going to be fresh when I decide to fill it. The medication is a powder. Some people say, I'm going to take the magic pill, or I'm going to have a doctor give me an IV. That's not legal. We have a mixture of 5 different medications. The main one that you would recognize is morphine, but there are other medications. They all slow the breathing and the heart rate in a peaceful way. What the person experiences is a bitter drink. I'm sorry, but a powder drink doesn't have a coating. So we know little tricks of the trade to make it more palatable. Sweet juices, sorbet beforehand, and it's only 2 ounces. So some people at the end are having a hard time drinking. So that helps that it's only 2 ounces. They can have somebody else hold the cup for them. That's legal. They just have to drink it through a straw to show that they want it. Nobody can coerce them. You can't pour the, If they can't take it by mouth and they don't, some people are like, I'm losing my ability to swallow, but I'm not ready to go yet. We can find other ways, including a rectal tubing, like an enema, but it's very gentle, and that is, done in privacy, and then the family can come in when they're all covered up. Sleep occurs rather quickly. That's why there's, once you're going to drink this, drink it quickly, because 1, it's bitter, and 2, we don't want you stopping and falling partially asleep. But we've never had anyone fail this. We've never had anyone stuck in a coma or anything. This works. It's very strong. And once the person falls asleep, they go into a deep coma where if something crashed in the room, they are so far, they are not awake. They are on their journey. And a lot of loved ones say, I see what you mean. They've left. It's just their body here that is slowly slowing down. And most people pass away within 2 hours. But we always warn, and it's nice to have the volunteer there that day. It could be seconds don't be shocked if it's quick. It could also last for hours. There's a range. Everybody's got their different journey, and we are there to tell you what the changes are that the body will go through, that the person's not struggling at all. They're happily on their journey. And this is just a reminder that just having the approval to have this is a comfort in itself. 1/3 of the people don't end up taking the medication, whether that's because they just had the comfort from it and they decided to let the disease take its course, they were peacefully passing, whatever reason, but it gives them some say in what the timing is. And I've really seen people love having their family all come together, a little party, they get to time it and say the goodbyes that they want to say. Okay, this slide just shows that, it shows a couple things. California is the bottom line, and it shows the percentage of overall all deaths in California per year and how many were from medical aid and dying. Some people worried that when the laws are passed that, it's going to be 50% of people are going to be using this, it's going to be abused. We have 0.25%, way below 1%. Part of that's a problem. It's because people don't know it's an option. And this study showed that awareness, only 25% of people in California know that this is legally an option. And in Canada, where they passed it as more of a province-wide, like saying a federal approval happened, they even on their website, when it says, are you looking for nursing care? Are you looking for a primary care appointment? Are you looking for medical aid in dying? It's one of the radial buttons. It's like no onus on it at all. So by law, no one will know if you took medical aid in dying unless you told them. It is private. It does not show up on your death certificate. It's your underlying illness that was causing the death anyway. And it will not affect any wills or life insurance. So you are protected. And that is the wonder of it being a law.
So back to a comment that Sue made a few minutes ago. The first medically aided death that I attended as a doula, the person seemed fine. She seemed great, and I was a fairly new doula at that point, and it was a little unnerving for me. But what I recognized as I got to know her and work with her over the week before her chosen date was that she had symptoms that were causing her life to be miserable. They were symptoms that other people couldn't see. And so she made that choice for herself, and she was such a strong person to look at the people around her and say, I really do know what I'm doing, and this is the right thing for me to do right now. And the other point I wanted to make is that, as Sue said, medical aid in dying is not suicide. And so in the United States, we try not to refer to it that way. We call it medical aid in dying, we call it aid in dying, assisted dying, because people who qualify for medical aid in dying are already dying. They just, with this medication, have the option to have more control over how, when, and where they will die. Whether they have a party around them, like Sue said, people really make a festive event out of it many times. But unlike suicide, this is not causing a death that would not otherwise occur.
Okay. We're not that far from the end, folks. We were going to do a stretch break, but I think we're just going to kick it through to the end. So when people call and they say, hey, I don't qualify for medical aid, or do I qualify? And we talk about what their illness is. This is another option that people very much consider. It's called voluntary stopping of eating and drinking, and since that's a mouthful, of course, we have an acronym, VSED. It is when, especially for the illnesses that are listed on the bottom half, like people with ALS, multiple sclerosis, their illnesses are going on, and it's very rare that a doctor will say, yes, you're going to pass away within X number of months. So sometimes people say, I'm done, and the person decides to stop taking all food and fluids. And the fluids is really the important part. You can live without food for a long time. It's your body dehydrating, and that will end your life. And the average length is about 9 days for someone who's already ill. Obviously it can range by your own journey and how sick you were. It doesn't require authorization by your physician to do this. You can just do it, but it's very helpful to have your physician on board. Hospice is very helpful because there is, for the first couple days, you're usually not, if you're already ill, your appetite doesn't even really bother you. You're already lost a lot of your appetite. You might be a little bit thirsty. You're up visiting with friends. The middle section of it, you might get a little achy because you're laying in bed. You're not up as much. Massage would be helpful. Maybe some medications would be helpful. That's when hospice is really helpful. to have that medical support, or your physician. And then the last stage is more like a typical death, because this is a typical death where you're sleeping most of the time and actively passing away. So some people choose this as an option, and we can talk them through that. There is a form for this. You can actually say, I am intentionally doing this. Here is my directive that says, please don't feed me. I don't want the caretakers feeling bad for me and giving me, things that I don't want. And yeah. There's something else I was going to say, but I just lost it. So.
It will probably come back to your mind later.
Yes.
Okay, so all of this feels like a lot to take in. It feels really heavy, and it can be a little hard to wrap your mind around. So let's talk about some things that can bring comfort and peace when death is becoming a reality. No matter what your beliefs have been throughout your life, it's natural to think about your faith more and spirituality more as you feel the end of your life approaching. The most common question I'm asked is, what do you think happens after? And with as many people who have promised to try to come back and let me know, you'd think I would have a good answer by now, but I believe there is no one right answer. Most doulas are not trained spiritual counselors, but most of us have some sort of spiritual path of our own, and we are very good listeners. And often, listening to a person is enough, because the right answer to what that person should be doing, or thinking, or working toward comes from that person's background, their experiences, their personal beliefs. They know what feels right for them, and having someone hear it and acknowledge it can be very affirming. Talking to a spiritual leader can be very helpful. People who have grown up in a religion may have fallen away from it at some point in their lives, and then later they find themselves coming back to those early beliefs as something to hold on to. Knowing that others we have loved and trusted held the same beliefs before they died gives us comfort and reassurance that we'll be okay. The answers may not come easily, but asking the questions and examining them more deeply seems to be the important part. As people draw nearer and nearer to the end, they somehow become resolved to what's happening, and the need to find specific answers seems to be less important than just spending time with loved ones and making every moment count. I recently watched a wonderful documentary on PBS called Sister Una Lived a Good Death. Has anyone seen it? Highly recommend it. It's on PBS Documentaries. So I'd like to close this section with a quote from Sister Una, who was terminally ill and approaching death. She said, "For me, death is another level of freedom. And I think my journey of dying has given me a freedom I've never known before. There are definitely elements in my life in which I'm so sad, but I'm free in a whole different way to live and to live out loud. Every day is a new gift, and every day I'm going to live it the best I can." Another comfort at end of life that I'm deeply involved with is music. Before I moved to California 7 years ago, I wanted to have my music people lined up as soon as I hit the ground, ready-made friends. So in my search online, I came across the Threshold Choir, and I immediately knew those were the people I was looking for. We sing a cappella in pairs and trios at the bedsides of hospice patients. Songs of peace, love, comfort, spirituality, specific religions, whatever feels right for each person who has asked us to sing. Most of the songs we sing are written specifically for this purpose, a genre for end of life. Music can be very comforting for the dying person, as well as for their caregivers and loved ones. Listening to soothing, meaningful songs creates a bond among the people in the room, and it can also pave the way for much needed conversations to happen after we leave the room. Have any of you sung with or heard the Threshold Choir?
Yay.
Oh, great. I have some flyers on the table over there if you'd like more information. And here's a short bit of one of my favorite songs based on a quote from Ram Dass. We are all just walking each other home. 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 One more time. This is actually the Marin Threshold Choir. That's just a recording I made on my phone one night at one of our rehearsals. That's probably my favorite song that we do. So the last comforting thing I'll mention is talking about death. Does that sound comforting?
No.
Believe it or not, talking about death can be comforting. It may feel a little weird at first, may feel kind of creepy, depressing, but it's also realistic. We're all dying. Just like everything else that's alive, we're all in some stage of moving toward the end of our lives. It's a big deal because it's permanent, at least for these bodies that we currently inhabit. And as with any uncomfortable topic, the more we talk about it, the more we normalize talking about it, the easier and less frightening it becomes. And the more comfortable and the more familiar the topic becomes, the less fear we have around it, especially when we're surrounded by others who are okay with joining in that conversation. So be those people. Once a month, I host a gathering called a Death Cafe. Have you heard of the Death Cafe? Good, oh, that's great. So you can find information about my Death Cafe and others at deathcafe.com, which is here. We sit around tables of 8 to 12-ish people, drinking tea and eating cookies, and we talk about whatever is on our minds regarding death, mortality, people who have died, existential questions, terminal illness, things we've read or seen. There's a facilitator at each table just to keep us roughly on topic and to make sure everyone gets to talk if they want, and we just talk. We have people who attend almost every month. We have our regulars. And there are always new people too. And invariably, people tell me that participating in those conversations lifts their spirits, makes them get up the next day with a new appreciation for life and for what they want to do with the precious time they have right now. So I hope you'll consider talking about death more. And I hope you'll consider trying out a Death Cafe. You'll meet some wonderful people, and you'll have a really good answer the next time someone asks you if you've done anything interesting lately.
Okay, so just to wrap this up, again with the, I want you to know you've got a group out there to support you. A lot of people say, oh my gosh, I don't feel so alone anymore. So tell people that there's this California End of Life option and that there's a group, End of Life Choices California, who can answer all your questions. Ask your doctor now, what do they think about this option? Would they support you in this? Maybe you need to see if there's another doctor that you want to work with, or you at least know the answer now. Sign up for our newsletter and blog if you're interested. You can do that online. I didn't bring up my blog sign-up sheet today. Oh. Or you might even volunteer. We have volunteers from all reaches of life, and you can end up doing all sorts of involvement. One of our projects right now, which is going to take a lot of manpower, is contacting every hospice in California, seeing what their official policy is if they need education, and if they're, that education would help them add a physician who would be able to write or willing to write for end of life. So we're just, grassroots doing it as we do it.